Hello, and welcome to another episode of Grow an Online Business, where this season I'm going to be walking you through my attempt at growing a YouTube channel from basically zero to 10,000 subscribers in 6 months. So that's the goal. That's what we're going to be working on. That is what I've been attempting to do. Now, for those of you who've been watching along in the Grow an Online Business YouTube channel, I'm documenting the podcast on the YouTube channel, and it's not going to be the channel I'm trying to build out. Okay, so I don't care if that gets any subscribers or not, but basically I want to document the journey. So for those of you who are listening to the podcast and you think to yourself, man, I'd like to learn more and like find out more for the ins and outs, the fine details, the minutia of what he's doing, and find out if it's working, how it's working, why it's working. I'm going to be going over that in my journal. And so I've been journaling several times a week, posting those videos onto that channel. And in there, I show a couple of different scenes. And so right now when I'm recording the podcast, I just sit in front of my computer and do it. But when I am attempting to find the different scenes that I'm going to be utilizing for the channel that I'm going to be building. The channel I'm going to be building is Aaron Gerald's. And so it's just Aaron Gerald's, all one word. If you look that up on YouTube, you'll find it. I haven't posted anything in there yet. Now I have a couple of videos, and I'm not sure how many are actually public. I know I've got about 100 videos on there. I think last time I looked, which was on Thursday, I think I have like 102 videos with about 8 of them or 10 of them being public. And that is because I have a bunch of unlisted ones that are from pages on my website where I go over the stuff that I'm writing in my blog, and I'll do a video for that, and then I'll post that video on there. So that's an embedded video. I don't know. I feel like it adds to the blog or the article that I'm writing on my website. So I put it on there, and that's there. So as far as actual content for people, oh, you've got subscribers, whatever. I think there's about, I think it's 100 or 102 subscribers, active subscribers that actually listen to my stuff that I put out there on the channel. I would say I probably have about 6. So I don't know. I've got a bunch of people that subscribed and then disappeared. And I think it's because I really wasn't consistent. I wasn't putting anything on the channel that made much sense. So this week, what I have done is I've come up with at least 2 that I'm comfortable with. I've done a bunch of samples, and then the 2 samples that I found that I liked, that even in the journal didn't turn out that well, but that's okay, is I did one in front of the, right over here to my right, which is the large TV. And so I've got this big giant, I don't know, 55-inch TV that's going to be behind me so that I can display graphics on it behind me. I'm going to sit in a bar stool and then do the talking. And so I've got some types of videos that I'm going to be putting on my Ask a Therapist, or, Therapist Reacts to, Therapist Watches. I'm going to be basically doing the therapist channel. That channel, I'm going to be utilizing the graphic screen behind me. So I think that's going to be a good one. Now, when I did it for the journal, I ended up putting up my Grow an Online Business podcast cover on the back, and it was way too bright. And so because of it being so bright and so light behind me, it just screwed the whole thing up. It did a lot of flashing and some other things that I wasn't really happy with. But of course, when I'm recording, I don't see it until afterwards, and I'm not going to edit that stuff out. I just don't have the time or the energy to do that. So I'm just posting the journals as they are. And so whatever I say in there, I say it, I put it up. Okay, and then the second journal I did which was very, very similar to the same type of background as this, but I did it in a better way. So I'm sitting in a bar stool. You can see much more of me. It's not just me talking, a talking head into the camera. So I'm going to be utilizing the same camera that I have on top of my computer now, that the one I'm using now, but I'm going to be doing it in a little bit different way. I think it looks just a touch more professional. So I think with that one, I'm going to be utilizing that framework or that type of shooting for a separate series of videos or playlist that I'm going to be doing on the channel. And so I haven't completely decided which ones I'm going to be putting on there for sure, but I know that I'm going to be using, I think I've got 3 playlists like nailed down, plus some additional ones that I'm going to be adding and toying with. But I think the first couple of playlists I'm going to be doing are Ask a Therapist. So I'll be answering questions that people ask therapists. So tons of questions that I get on a daily basis in my office and my practice. I'm going to be utilizing those and answering those questions so that people can get those answers more readily. Second, there's a lot of questions that are being posted in different videos and then in different emails and different texts that I'm getting, people reaching out and asking me on Facebook and so forth, different things about, what is it like to be a therapist? How do I know that therapists aren't all assholes? That kind of stuff. And I'm wanting to answer those questions. And so for people that are looking for therapists that aren't the typical treat the symptom type of therapist, I think there are those people out there. They're a little bit harder to find, obviously, but I think I'm going to give the audience some ways to go about finding and basically vetting the therapists that they're going to be seeing. Too often people think, well, I'm going to just talk to this as a therapist. They're all the same, and they're really not. So therapy is one of those things where it's a relationship between the therapist and the client, and they both have to get along. And yes, the therapist should be able to set aside, not project, not to do all of these things, but realistically, it doesn't really matter if you're sitting in front of that therapist and that therapist reminds you of your cousin that you hate. Okay. Or an uncle that you don't like, or a neighbor that you used to have, or a teacher, or someone, it just seemed to rub you the wrong way. You don't know what it is. It's not them personally, but if you have that relationship going on, go find another one. Because you've got to be able to sit in front of that person and get naked. And so I think I want to debunk a lot of the garbage that's out there on the internet right now that's going around. There's so much just BS stuff that people are trying to promote. And I understand that therapy and therapists requires a lot of training, a lot of education. Okay. And to become a life coach, which I think is a very valuable thing. I just don't think life coaches should be putting themselves in the same arena as a therapist. They can't tell you how to just get rid of depression. Okay, so they can't tell you how to get rid of depression. They can tell you how to be happier legally. They're allowed to help you get happier, feel happier, enjoy happiness. They're not allowed to treat or diagnose or do anything with depression, anxiety, any of those things. So when therapists are out there like, do you feel stressed? Well, of course. And you're not qualified to treat them. So stop it. So I would like to be able to basically clear up what they're saying and what they're doing, because very often they're saying things that sound like they work. And typically speaking, I would say for the most part, about 70% of the stuff works, but for about 10% of the reason they think it works. Very often it works, but not for the reason they're specifying why it works, which is why when they go, man, I don't understand, it works. And this is why is wrong. So that when other people hear it, they go, oh, if that's why, then this. So they start applying it to different areas of their life and it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because they had the reasoning behind why the thing that they thought worked wrong. And so you have to know the reasoning behind why it works. And I'll tell you for sure that therapists typically don't share that information. That's one of those kind of, I don't want to say secrets, but that's one of those secrets. We don't, okay, if you go to a magician and they show you how the trick works, they're scammers and you're just like, oh, I hate this. These guys are, God, I can see right through you. Yes. So therapists don't tell people why what they're doing works, just that it works. Because if you knew how it works, then you go, oh, I see what you're doing. And then it doesn't work. So very often psychological tactics or techniques or things that you can implement into your life or the lives of others work only for those it works for, right? So this is why therapists very often do not have the best relationships, because those kind of tactics and techniques don't work on themselves because they already know it and they see through it. They can't do it to themselves and be like, oh, it's working. Because it doesn't. It's basically a magic trick. It's sleight of hand, but it's sleight of mind. Anyway, it doesn't work the same way. So what I want to do is I want to clear up a lot of the garbage that's being spread out there for the reasons that it's being spread. And I'll explain it. I don't mind explaining what works, what doesn't. And then I'll even say at this point of the video, if you don't want to know why it works, then click off now. But if you're interested in learning why, I'll explain it to you so that you can help others. The trouble is the moment you start having a deeper understanding of it so that you can help others is almost you can't help yourself. Now, I know that sounds weird, but when you think about it, if you know how the thing works, then when you try to apply it to yourself, you go, well, yeah, I know what I'm trying to do, and it's not going to work. So it's kind of a catch-22. I definitely want to help people treat the cause, not just Band-Aid the symptom, but it comes at a price very often. So I want to help share the valid information that they should know. And then I'm willing to show behind the curtain. I'll tell people and explain to them and show them why it works if they're interested in finding that out. But just know that it's going to change your view of how it works. And as soon as you understand how it works and why it works, you'll be able to help other people with it. You're not supposed to, but because sometimes it takes a little bit of training to understand the nuances of it, but I'll explain all of that too. I don't have a problem explaining all of that to everybody. Here's what I want to do. This next week, okay, so I explained that this week I was working on the podcast. This week I got the different scenes that I'm going to be doing and putting on the channel. So I haven't had a lot of time to sit down and record any of the YouTube content, the videos themselves. Now I've done some sample videos and I've been messing around with Premiere Pro, and I'm working on the editing. And now the editing has become it's bogged me down. It's becoming very problematic. Okay, I understand that I am not fully equipped to be editing the videos to the quality that I know that I want. Okay, and I also know that I can't afford to pay somebody else to do it yet. So I'm having to find this weird middle ground. I know that I'm very much a perfectionist. I know that sounds weird since I'm just pushing out these podcasts without doing a ton of extra editing, but that's because I'm starting to get to the place in my life where I realize done is better than perfect. And I'm only there because I've spent so much of my life trying to do things perfect that I've gotten nearly nothing done because I'm so busy trying to make sure that I do everything right that I never get anything done. And so I'm sick of doing that. I'm tired of it. I'm ready to start getting some stuff done. And I'm finding that it's easier to steer a moving ship, right? If you want to know if you're heading in the right direction, well, very often people will be like, I don't want to start and go in the wrong direction. I want to make sure I'm doing something right. And so I'm going to spend a lot of time like analyzing and thinking about and overthinking and making sure that when I take that step, that I'm headed in the right direction. Well, I'm here to tell you that I've lived for 49 years doing that. And guess what? It isn't the best way to do it. The best thing to do is to say, you know what? I want to make a decision. I want to start heading that way. Boop, and take a step. And it's better that you take a step even if it's in the wrong direction, because the moment you take a step in the wrong direction, you go, oop, this is the wrong direction. I need to be going this way. And you can instantly steer, turn, pivot, and head in the direction you want to. But it will be miles, days, weeks, even months before you would have come to that conclusion. And maybe you would have come to that conclusion. Maybe you would have come to a different conclusion, started and been like, that's wrong anyway. And then had to turn and pivot anyway. So just take the time to think it through clearly once, decide where you want to go, and start. And as soon as you take a step, you go, nope, I need to adjust, and then adjust. No worries. I have gotten now to the place in my life where I realize mistakes are nothing more than simple mistakes. Keep going. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And things don't matter until you let them matter, right? Nothing matters until you say that it matters. I'll go into that more later. But right now I'm saying that I'm going to be making moves and moving forward, whether or not it's in the right way or not, whether I'm doing it properly, whether I'm doing it to the quality that I would like. You know what? I already am going to give myself the permission to do this bad long enough to get good at it. And I'm going to put the content out because realistically, here's what I figure. Most of the viewership, most of the listeners, most of everybody, if you're listening to this, you're probably not listening to it on a live basis. Today is 9/17/2023 at 8:31 p.m. And I'm going to guess that you're not listening to this on 9/18. 2023. I'm guessing you're probably listening to this in sometime in 2024, 2025, once I've made it big. And now you're going back and you're listening to this stuff. And if you're listening to this now, just know that I don't know for sure that I'm going to get big. I don't know for sure that this is going to work, but I can tell you I'm not going to stop until it does. So that's it. I want you, any and everyone who's listening to this, to be able to come back all the way back here, back to the beginning and go, you know what? Really, he seems really good at this now. Was he ever bad at it? Ta-da! Yes, I am. I'm bad at it right now. So just be willing to step out on faith and to tell yourself, I'm not going to stop until I'm finished. And I'm not going to be finished until I've succeeded. So it doesn't really matter how many mistakes or how many failures you make along the way, because you're not going to stop until you win. Okay, go for it. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I don't know who that's for. It's probably for me. Keep going. I have to tell myself to keep going because I've done so many things where I've thought and not made any moves. And now moving forward and making these moves, recording these videos, recording these podcasts, recording all of this stuff is nerve-wracking. It's a little bit scary. It gives me a little bit of nerves. But you know what? If I waited until I wasn't scared, if I waited until I wasn't nervous, if I waited until I was comfortable to do it, I'd never get it done. Because I'm more comfortable now than on podcast one, than on video one. Okay? I'm much more confident, much more at peace with myself. But even now I watch these videos and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to always have a list of stuff I probably should have. But you know what? Either way, I'm going to get it done. So here's what I want to go out this week on this podcast is for you to know that if you're thinking about starting your own business, if you're thinking about doing your own thing, your own YouTube channel, your own online business, your own something, then pull the trigger. Step out on faith and get going. So get doing it. That's what I'm doing here. I'm hoping that next week, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to have any videos up by next week. I'm simply not. Now I'm going to finish making out my playlists. I'm going to finish writing out the scripts for the videos that I'm going to be doing. And then I'm going to start working on them. Now, I know I just said that I'm going to just do it and I'm going to put it out. I'm gonna. But I'm also going to try and do it professionally enough that it looks decent from the start. And I need to have a backlog of at least 4 weeks worth of videos ready to go in the pipeline, pre-scheduled before I start and officially launch the channel. Because I need the algorithm to know that I'm taking it as serious as I am. And I don't want to miss an opportunity to post a video. I don't want it to be pretty consistent, pretty regular, and then it falls off because life gets in the way and something happens and I wasn't able to record a video. So I want to be 4 weeks ahead, or at least 3, so that if I am in the process of making and publishing and recording and posting and doing my stuff, that I'll probably be about a month behind. And that's the goal, is to be about a month behind so that I have enough time to edit, quality edit, pre-screen, and then make changes and then post. So I'm going to try and do it a little bit higher quality, definitely higher quality than I'm doing the podcast, and definitely way more higher quality, at a much higher quality level on my actual channel than I'm doing on my documentation or documentary channel. That one, I'm just going to be documenting the entire process, putting up the raw podcast, putting up everything out the way it is. And that's because I think it's important for people to see the entire process. And I want to document the process not only for you, but for me, because I know that by the time it's 2-3 years from now and I'm like, man, you know what? I always knew I could do it. That's going to be bullshit. There are times right now where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. I have good days and I have bad days. Now, granted, when I get there and I make it, because I'm not going to stop until I do. So when I do, I'm going to go, you know what? And hindsight's always 20/20, what they say, but that's bullshit. It's always rose colored. And so you go, you know what? I had a lot of hard time, but they were all worth it. Okay, maybe they will be worth it, but right now they don't feel like it. Staying up late at night trying to do all of these things doesn't feel worth it. But I'm willing to put in the time and the effort now for the possibility of a payday down the line. Okay. And I don't need to be rich. I'm not looking to get rich. I'm looking to be able to share the message of mental health, mental well-being, and share the idea of our own innate well-being inside of us, that if we just get out of the way of our own thinking, we can feel good. And I'm hoping to kind of debunk a whole bunch of the other crap that's getting in the way, that's keeping you from being and feeling as good as you could. Right? So anyway, I'll get more into that later in the channel. But for right now, I'm trying to stay. I really am. I know I've got a little bit of ADD here. I think for listeners that know me, know that I got a little ADD, and I kind of head down some rabbit holes sometimes. So I'm going to try and stay on task and on path this time. You're going to find now that as I'm going through the podcast and I'm trying to basically stay on track, and I'm using the camera in order to talk into it this time instead of just the microphone. Before, I could just talk into the microphone and I could just look at my list, look at my notes. Now I'm having to try and look into the camera while I'm talking as well. So it becomes a little bit more difficult. But it is what it is. Last week I did, just as a quick heads up. So last week I did go in, these are just readers, because I'm going blind. I'm getting old, and so it's harder and harder to see. And so in order to see my notes and to see the computer screen, I've got to wear readers. And I know they're bothersome, and I get that. And so I moved the light up. I'm hoping not to get too much glare and reflection off these, but I apologize, and it is what it is. I did have to go to the optometrist, and I did order some new glasses. They're supposed to have some non-glare reflective free stuff on them that should be a little bit better. And I know when I'm doing my channel, I'll be a little bit further back. I should get a little bit less glare. So I apologize about that, but my new glasses should be here in about 3-4 weeks. So knock on wood that they look good and that they work like they're supposed to. I think that's all I have for tonight's podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting me. And please do jump into the Facebook Grow an Online Business Facebook group. If you have any questions, if you want to ask me anything, if you want to, I don't know, give me some support and tell me keep going, we're interested in finding out if you can make it. Or if you want to share something about your story, please do. I'd be happy to mention you here on the podcast, because I think that we all need to kind of share in this journey together. It oftentimes feels very, very lonely. I think I've said this before. It's a very, very lonely experience doing it because nobody I know understands what it is I want to do. And so when I explain it to them, when I go to them and I talk to them, yeah, I want to build this YouTube channel. I want to do this online business. I want to build this podcast. I want to do all these things. They're like, none of that makes sense, dude. Go get a job. I mean, I have a job. I'm a therapist. I work. But that is something I enjoy, but it isn't my passion. I really love doing this, and I love making the podcast. I love sharing things with people, I don't know, outside of the chair. I don't like having to just sit in the therapist chair all of the time. And I feel like too, that when people come and see me when I'm sitting in the therapist chair, there's a little bit of a stigma. You're coming and talking to a therapist. I want to be able to take away that therapist stigma. And I don't believe that it's through awareness of explaining to people what their diagnoses are and what the different diseases are, and you shouldn't be ashamed. First of all, I don't take a disease approach. I don't think you're messed up. I don't think you have problems. I think that some stuff is in your head that's getting in the way of your happiness. Now, I'm not saying there aren't legitimate reasons to need a therapist and to have stuff that you need to go in and get actual therapeutic help for. But I would say by and large, most people need someone to talk to. They need a therapist, and they're just having some extra anxiety, depression, or overthinking something going on. Now, if you're experiencing delusions, paranoia, something else, psychosis, yeah, you need professional help. But everybody else, you just need some help. Right? You just need to be able to talk to somebody, and being aware of what depression means and all of the symptoms, and you go, oh my God, I have all of those. And then you start labeling. I don't think that's highly beneficial. So anyway, we'll get more into that in the actual YouTube channel when that gets officially launched and pushed out. And I will explain all of that, and I'll put a link in the description so that you can find it if you're interested. Until then, thank you. Yeah, I'm back to where I was a second ago. Thank you for listening. Thanks for your support. I hope to see and talk to you soon. All right, bye.